There is an ancient text, a text so powerful, so charged with divine energy, that for thousands of years kings and shepherds alike turned to it in their darkest moments and rose from those moments transformed. This text did not originate in a university. It was not composed by a philosopher sitting comfortably in a library. It was written in the dust of the desert, in the middle of warfare, in the depths of a soul that had lost everything and still chose to believe. That text is the Book of Psalms. And within that sacred collection there is one psalm, one specific arrangement of words, one particular cry directed at the heavens, that has been called, across centuries and continents, the great key to breaking the spirit of poverty. It has been whispered in the ears of the dying, chanted in the homes of the desperate, and memorized by those who had nothing left but faith. Today, we are going to enter that psalm together. We are going to read it. We are going to understand it. And by the time this experience is over, something in your home, something in your spirit, something in the invisible architecture of your financial life is going to shift. Because the promise embedded in this psalm is not metaphorical. It is not poetic decoration. It is a living contract between a human soul and the Creator of all abundance. Before we enter the psalm itself, we need to understand something fundamental about the nature of poverty. Poverty is not simply the absence of money. This is perhaps the most dangerous misunderstanding that keeps millions of people locked in cycles of lack, year after year, generation after generation. Poverty is a spirit. It is an atmosphere. It is a frequency. It is a set of invisible agreements that a household makes with limitation, with smallness, with the belief that there is never enough. You can see this clearly when you observe people who receive large sums of money, through an inheritance, through a lottery win, through a sudden business opportunity, and within months or years, the money is gone. Not because they were careless, not because they were foolish, but because the spirit of poverty was still living in their home. The money arrived, but the frequency had not changed, and the frequency always wins. The spirit of poverty is ancient. It has been working against humanity since the earliest recorded histories. It operates through thoughts, through the way you speak about money around your kitchen table, through the way your parents spoke about money and their parents before them. It operates through shame, through the belief that wealth is for other people, through the quiet but devastating conviction that you are not worthy of abundance. It operates through spiritual blockages, through unresolved family traumas, through curses spoken in anger, through covenants made with limitation during seasons of despair. And it can only be broken by something equally ancient, equally powerful, equally spiritual. It must be broken by the Word of God. Now let us talk about the Psalms themselves, because to read a psalm without understanding what you are holding is like eating without tasting. The Psalms are not ordinary religious text. They are not instructions, not commandments, not theological arguments. The Psalms are something far more intimate and far more powerful. They are the recorded prayers of people who were in genuine crisis. David, the primary author of the Psalms, was a man who knew poverty. He knew what it meant to be hunted, to be betrayed, to sleep in caves, to watch enemies prosper while he suffered. He was anointed as king of Israel while still a teenager, and then spent years running for his life. And in all of those moments, the beautiful ones and the devastating ones, he wrote, he spoke directly to God, not through ritual, not through performance, but through the raw, unfiltered language of a heart that refused to stop believing. And those prayers became so aligned with divine truth, so charged with genuine faith that they transcended their original moment. They became eternal. They became activated words, words that carry the same energy today as they carried 3,000 years ago. When you read a psalm out loud, you are not reciting history. You are activating a spiritual frequency. You are aligning your voice with one of the most powerful sequences of intention ever recorded by human hands. The psalm we are focusing on today is Psalm 23, and I know that many of you have heard this psalm before. You have perhaps heard it read at funerals. You have seen it on inspirational posters. You may even have it memorized. But I want you to set aside everything you think you know about it, because we are not going to read it the way you have read it before. We are going to read it as a financial document, as a prosperity covenant, as a direct spiritual eviction notice to the spirit of poverty. Because that is exactly what it is when you understand the original language and the original context in which it was written. The psalm opens with 6 words that contain within them the entire secret of abundance. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. 6 words. And yet those 6 words, properly understood, are a complete demolition of every lie the spirit of poverty has ever told you. The word shepherd in Hebrew is roi, and the ro is not simply a man who watches sheep from a distance. The ro is a provider, a protector, an intimate caretaker who knows each member of the flock by name, who knows their weaknesses and their strengths, who goes ahead of them into dangerous territory to make sure the path is safe. The ro does not provide just enough. The ro provides abundantly, strategically, and with deep personal knowledge of each creature under his care. And then the 6 words conclude with the most radical statement a human being can make. I shall not want. This is not wishful thinking. This is not a hope or a dream. In the original Hebrew, this is a declaration, a present tense absolute unconditional declaration. I shall not want. I am in a state of complete supply, not future supply, not conditional supply. Now, here, always. When David wrote these words, he was speaking from a place of complete trust in the nature of his God. And when you read these words aloud in your home, you are doing something extraordinary. You are agreeing with them. You are choosing to align your voice, your faith, and the atmosphere of your home with the frequency of complete provision. You are telling the spirit of poverty that it has no legal right to remain, because the shepherd is here, and under the shepherd's care there is no lack. The psalm continues, He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Now listen carefully to this imagery, because it is not accidental. In the ancient Near East, green pastures and still waters were not simply beautiful scenery. They were the difference between survival and death. A flock of sheep in a barren landscape will starve. A flock that cannot find still water, not rushing, dangerous water, but calm, accessible, abundant water, will die of thirst. David is saying, my provider takes me specifically to the place of overflowing supply. He does not take me to barely enough. He does not take me to the edge of survival. He takes me to green pastures, to abundance that is already prepared, already waiting, already more than sufficient. And then, He restores my soul. This line is critical for anyone trying to break free from poverty, because poverty does not only damage your bank account, it damages your soul. It damages the part of you that believes, the part of you that hopes, the part of you that dares to imagine a different future. Years of lack can leave a person spiritually exhausted, emotionally depleted, afraid to hope because hope has been disappointed so many times before. And the psalm is saying, the shepherd restores that. He reaches into the damaged places of your inner life and He heals them. He gives you back your capacity for faith. He gives you back your ability to receive. And this is essential, because you cannot receive abundance into a closed, wounded soul. The restoration of the soul is the prerequisite for the restoration of the finances. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. This line speaks to guidance. The spirit of poverty loves confusion. It loves bad decisions, wrong directions, missed opportunities. It loves the feeling of being lost. And Psalm 23 answers this directly. Even when I cannot see clearly, even when the path forward is not obvious, even when every human decision seems potentially wrong, I am being led, not by my own wisdom, which is limited and fallible, but by a guide whose knowledge is perfect and whose investment in my flourishing is total. And the phrase for His name's sake is extraordinary. It means that your prosperity is not just about you. It is connected to the reputation, the glory, the demonstrated power of God in the earth. When you prosper, something is proven, something is demonstrated. The universe itself has a stake in your abundance, because your abundance is evidence of a promise kept. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now we arrive at the most honest part of the psalm, because the psalm does not pretend that the journey to abundance is without darkness. It does not tell you that once you align with divine provision, you will never face difficulty. Never walk through frightening seasons. Never feel the shadow closing in around you. It acknowledges the valley. It acknowledges the shadow of death, which is not necessarily physical death, but all the dark valleys of human experience, financial collapse, devastating loss, the moment when everything you built seems to be crumbling. And it says, even there, even in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Not I hope not to fear. Not I will try not to fear. I will fear no evil. This is the language of someone who has made a decision. Fear is always a choice, even when it does not feel like one. And the decision not to fear is one of the most powerful spiritual acts available to a human being. Because fear is the primary language of the spirit of poverty. Fear is how it speaks to you. Fear is how it paralyzes you. Fear is how it convinces you to make small decisions, to stay small, to accept less than what has been prepared for you. And this psalm hands you a sword against that fear. The rod and the staff that David mentions are the instruments of the shepherd. The rod to defend the flock against predators, the staff to guide and rescue sheep that have fallen into difficult places. Comfort here does not mean emotional warmth alone. It means active, practical protection. The shepherd is not only present in the valley, he is armed in the valley. He is working on your behalf in the most dangerous moments of your financial and spiritual life. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This verse alone is enough to break the spirit of poverty. You prepare a table before me, not in the absence of my enemies, not after my enemies have been defeated and everything is safe and comfortable, in the presence of my enemies. The blessing, the provision, the abundance comes while the opposition is still watching. And this is deeply significant because so many people believe they must wait for all obstacles to be cleared, all enemies to be defeated, all opposition to be silenced before they can begin to prosper. But the psalm reveals a different order of things. The table is set now. The provision is already there. The blessing is available in the middle of the conflict, in the middle of the adversity, in the middle of the very circumstances that the spirit of poverty is using to convince you that abundance is impossible. And the enemies, whether they are literal people who wish you harm, or spiritual forces of limitation, or the internal voices of doubt and self-sabotage, they are forced to watch. They are forced to witness your flourishing. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies is not just a comfort. It is a humiliation of every power that has tried to keep you in lack. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. In ancient Near Eastern culture, anointing with oil was an act of consecration, of setting apart, of marking someone as chosen and blessed. It was performed at the coronation of kings, at the ordination of priests, at moments of highest divine favor. And here David is saying, "This has happened to me. I have been marked, I have been chosen, I have been set apart not for lack, not for barely enough, but for overflow. My cup overflows. Not my cup is full. Not my cup is sufficient. Overflows." This is the language of surplus, of abundance that exceeds what you need, of blessing that is so complete it spills over the edges and blesses everyone around you. This is the divine blueprint for your financial life, not survival, not sufficiency. Overflow. And when you speak these words in your home, you are agreeing with this blueprint. You are choosing to align your household with this vision of overflowing abundance rather than the spirit of poverty's vision of perpetual lack. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. The word translated as follow here is much stronger in the original Hebrew. It is the word radaf, which means to pursue, to chase, to hunt. It is the same word used for a predator hunting prey or an army pursuing a fleeing enemy. Goodness and mercy are not casually walking behind you at a comfortable distance. They are chasing you. They are hunting you down. They are pursuing you with the same relentless intensity that the spirit of poverty has been pursuing you, but in the opposite direction, toward blessing, toward favor, toward provision, every single day of your life, not on special days, not on days when you have been perfect or earned the blessing through your own effort, all the days of your life. And the psalm closes with the ultimate declaration, "And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." This is the covenant. This is the permanent address change. You are no longer a resident of the house of lack. You no longer live in the territory of barely enough. Your permanent home, your spiritual address, the place where your soul resides and from which your entire life is ordered, is the house of the Lord. And in that house there is no poverty. There is no lack. There is no empty table or unfulfilled need. There is only the presence of the one who made every resource that has ever existed and who has chosen to be your shepherd. Now let us talk about how to use this psalm, because reading is powerful, but intentional application is transformative. The first thing I want you to understand is that this psalm should be read aloud, not silently in your mind, out loud, with your voice, in your home. There is something spiritually significant about the spoken word in the biblical tradition. God spoke the world into existence. Jesus spoke to storms and they obeyed. The prophets did not think their prophecies, they declared them. Your voice is a creative instrument. When you speak Psalm 23 aloud in your home, you are releasing a spiritual frequency into the atmosphere of that space. You are literally changing the sound, the vibration, the spiritual environment of every room. The spirit of poverty operates through spiritual atmosphere. It sets up residents in environments of fear, of unbelief, of negative confession. When you fill your home with the sound of Psalm 23, you are doing a spiritual cleansing. You are changing the environment in a way that the spirit of poverty cannot inhabit. The second thing I want you to do is read it with intention and with full presence. Do not rush through it. Do not treat it as a task to be completed. Read it slowly. Let each line settle in your spirit before moving to the next. When you read, "I shall not want," pause. Let that declaration land. Let it confront every lie you have ever believed about lack. When you read, "My cup overflows," pause. Let your imagination engage. Let yourself see, even briefly, what overflow looks like in your specific life. The imagination is the workshop of faith. What you can see on the inside, you can receive on the outside. The Psalms are designed to activate your spiritual imagination, to reprogram the pictures you carry internally about what your life is supposed to look like. The third element is frequency. Read Psalm 23 in your home every day for the next 24 hours, and then continue. Read it in the morning when you wake up, as the first words you release into the atmosphere of your day. Read it in the evening before you sleep, as the final frequency you establish in your home before the night closes in. Read it in the middle of the day, when anxiety about money comes knocking, when the bills seem overwhelming, when the spirit of poverty tries to make its voice louder than the voice of the shepherd. This is not superstition. This is spiritual discipline. Just as physical muscles are strengthened through repetition, spiritual atmospheres are established through consistent, intentional declaration. You are retraining the spiritual environment of your home to resonate at the frequency of Psalm 23. The fourth element is gratitude. Before you read the psalm, take a moment to identify 3 specific things in your life that already represent provision, already represent abundance, already represent the shepherd's care. It does not matter how small they seem. A roof over your head, food in the kitchen, a person who loves you, health in your body. Gratitude is the frequency that makes you spiritually visible to blessing. It opens the channels that scarcity and resentment close. When you approach Psalm 23 through the doorway of gratitude, you are not approaching it as a desperate person asking for something you do not have. You are approaching it as someone who already knows the character of the shepherd and is choosing to align more deeply with what he has already promised. The fifth element is action. Faith without works is dead, and spiritual alignment without corresponding action is incomplete. After you read Psalm 23, take one practical step that moves you in the direction of the abundance you are declaring. It does not need to be enormous. Send one email about an opportunity you have been afraid to pursue. Make one phone call you have been avoiding. Open a savings account even with a tiny first deposit. Write down one financial goal and put it somewhere you can see it. The action does not have to be large, but it has to be consistent with the declaration. You cannot declare overflow with your mouth and simultaneously refuse to move your feet. The shepherd leads, but the sheep must walk. The green pastures are real, but you must follow him into them. I want to speak now to those of you who have been in poverty for a long time, those of you for whom this is not a temporary inconvenience, but a lifelong reality. Those of you who grew up in households where there was never enough, where money was a source of shame and anxiety and conflict, where abundance felt like something that happened to other families, in other neighborhoods, in other lives. I want to speak to you directly because Psalm 23 was written for you specifically. David was not a king who wrote about poverty from a comfortable distance. He was a young man from a large family who was considered so insignificant that when the prophet Samuel came to anoint a new king and asked to see Jesse's sons, David was not even invited to the meeting. He was out in the field, doing the work nobody else wanted to do. He was the overlooked one, the forgotten one, the one the family did not think to include when divine destiny came calling. And yet he was the one chosen for the throne. And he was the one who wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He wrote it knowing the feeling of being excluded. He wrote it knowing the feeling of being underestimated. He wrote it knowing what it feels like when the spirit of poverty tells you that you are not the kind of person abundance comes to. And he refused to agree with that lie. He wrote the opposite of that lie. He declared the opposite of that lie. And in declaring it, he stepped into a destiny that exceeded everything the spirit of poverty had planned for him. That is your invitation today. Not to pretend that your circumstances are not real, not to deny the difficulty, not to perform a happiness you do not feel, but to make a decision, the same decision David made in the fields, that the voice of the shepherd is louder than the voice of lack, that the promise written in green pastures is truer than the evidence of the barren landscape around you right now, that your cup is designed to overflow, and that every force that has conspired to keep it empty is subject to the word of the one who called you to abundance. The promise of the title is bold. Read this psalm once and watch poverty leave your home in 24 hours. And I want to honor that boldness by explaining exactly what it means, because I do not want you to approach this psalm with unrealistic expectations that lead to disappointment. What changes in 24 hours is not always the balance in your bank account. What changes is the atmosphere. What changes is the spiritual environment of your home. What changes is the internal posture of your soul toward abundance. What changes is your agreement with the spirit of poverty. And that agreement, once broken, begins a process that will inevitably, unstoppably manifest in the physical realm. The roots change before the fruit appears. The seed goes into the ground before the harvest comes up. When you read Psalm 23 with genuine faith, genuine intention, genuine agreement, something shifts in the invisible realm of your life. The spirit of poverty loses its legal right to reside in your home. The atmosphere changes, and when the atmosphere changes, everything else follows. It may not all be visible in 24 hours, but something will shift in 24 hours. You will feel it in your spirit. A heaviness will lift, a fear will quiet, a new thought will come, an idea, a direction, an opportunity that you had not considered before. This is the shepherd leading. This is the green pasture opening up. This is the beginning of overflow. I want to leave you with one final thought. The psalm ends with, "I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And I want you to understand that the house of the Lord is not a building. It is not a physical location. It is a state of relationship, a state of proximity to the source of all provision, a state of alignment with the character of the one who has promised to be your shepherd forever. When you choose to dwell there, through daily reading, through intentional declaration, through acts of faith, through the discipline of gratitude, you are not just trying to attract money. You are repositioning your entire life. You are changing your address from the house of lack to the house of the Lord. And once you truly live there, once that becomes your real, permanent, daily dwelling place, poverty has nowhere left to go. It cannot cohabit with the presence of the shepherd. It cannot survive in the atmosphere of Psalm 23. It has to leave, not because of your effort, not because of your cleverness or your strategy or your positive thinking, but because the shepherd is greater than the spirit of poverty. And wherever the shepherd dwells, lack has no authority. Read Psalm 23 today. Read it aloud. Read it in every room of your home. Read it over your finances. Read it over your children. Read it over your future. Declare it as a covenant, as an agreement, as a spiritual eviction notice to every power that has been holding abundance away from your door. And then watch. Watch the atmosphere change. Watch the fear quiet. Watch the ideas come. Watch the doors open. Watch the table being prepared. Right now, in the presence of every enemy that has ever told you that you would never be enough, never have enough, never live in overflow. The shepherd is here. The green pastures are waiting. Your cup is about to overflow.